You're live, Your Worship.
Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Members of council who are present in the room. We also have Councillor Deneen, who's joining us virtually. She's online. So good morning or good afternoon now, Councillor Deneen, and members of council. We have our members of our staff here. Many of our staff members are with us. Not all, but we have most of our senior team available to us. And we have many members of the public that are also joining us. And so we're very happy to get started here on our special council meeting, which is our budget meeting. It's a workshop session for budget meeting number 1. And we are going to be reviewing the proposed budget for 2024 council. It will be this meeting and a subsequent meeting, and then there'll be a public meeting held on the 5th, which will bring forward the recommendations as presented, and we'll hear input from the public at that time. So this is a good opportunity for us as council to review what is going to be presented. We have several, we've got the NVCA here and the Creemore BIA are going to kick us off today. And then we have a presentation about administration, also the Clearview Public Library. I see the CEO of the libraries with us as well. And planning and building department, Amy Can will be making a presentation along with Scott McLeod, the chief building official. And that'll be it for today's budget workshop. Our CIO is also with us. He's online. He's at home dealing with a cold. And so we want to make sure everybody knows who's here. Welcome. Council, we're going to start with the approval of the agenda. Recommendation be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda for the budget meeting number 1, dated November 8th, 2023, as presented. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Seconded by Mr. Walker. Thank you. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call it. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. I see you up there, Ms. Deneen. Any disclosure, pecuniary interest, and general nature thereof? Members of council, anything? Anything comes up, we'll deal with it right away. Thank you very much. And so now we're going to move right into our budget presentation. So however, the first thing we're going to do is go to our treasurer, Kelly McDonald, and our CIO, John Ferguson, who is online with us virtually. I'm not sure who is starting this. I'm thinking it's the CIO, and then we'll go to Kelly. Is that correct, Kelly? You're just giving me a nod. Okay. Mr. Ferguson, if you want to join us and you can kick off your comments at the top of the meeting, and then we'll move into our presentations. Go ahead, Mr. Ferguson.
Can you hear me? Yep. Okay. Yep. So we're going to go through the budget presentation. You're going to see some of the pressures that each department is facing. As we go through this process, we'll also get further information as we prepare our budget, including what our assessment will be. And so take this information today as information. We're not asking for any final decisions. Refer the stuff to budget. And I think it's going to be a tight budget year. And I think we have to be cognizant of what we have to do as a municipality to meet our servicing needs, but also to keep within our financial wherewithal. So Kelly has prepared a slide deck, I believe, and she can begin that process. I think if you're up, I'm not sure if you're up first on the agenda or not, Kelly, but if you have anything you'd like to say, please do. All the departments have sort of pitched in at this point in time to see where we are and what their budget proposals are. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, CIO Ferguson. All right, you hang in there. I'm sure we'll have questions during this entire meeting, but good luck with that cold. We'll go to Kelly. Kelly McDonald, our treasurer, along with your treasury team, have been working on this budget. So first of all, I'm going to acknowledge that your deputy and your financial advisor, financial consultant. I'm not sure what's your title now, Stuart. Analyst, that's the word. Sorry, I knew it was in that. So Kelly, thank you very much for going ahead. If you want to go ahead with your comments.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to members of council, as CIO Ferguson mentioned, this is the first of 2 staff proposed operating capital budget meetings. These meetings are for council to ask any questions they can possibly think about the department budget being presented. After these 2 meetings, we're going to have a meeting on December the 5th, I believe it is, which is the council hash it out meeting, so to speak. So that will be your opportunity to discuss all of your ideas and suggestions and find out different ideas for funding sources. At the 15th meeting, once the presentations are completed, I will put some options to council as far as different funding sources for some of the items that were brought forward by council. For the most part, these are included in the 2024 budget. And if they're not, that particular director will be speaking to why not. So without dragging it on any further, I think we have the NVCA up first.
All right. Thank you very much, Kelly. I look forward to hearing a full review of this when we complete all these presentations and let council have a really good look at each department's actual dollar values. All right. So we're going to move right on to our first presentation here today, council. We have the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority is here. Doug Havner, the CAO, is here. I see you hiding behind the podium. You're welcome to step forward along with Cheryl Flanagan to discuss the levy portion of the NVCA budget that's applied to Clearview Township. As always, Doug, it's great to have you here in our chambers. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a pleasure to be here with you and council, staff, and any of the attendants that are here to see the meeting today. Am I moving the slides or are you? Okay, great. Okay. Can I have the next slide, please? A little history on the NVCA. We've been at this game for 63 years as a conservation authority here. We manage 3,700 square kilometers of land, and it encompasses most of Simcoe County, some of Dufferin County, a little bit of Grey County, and we do work in what we call Little Nub. We work in the top of the Oak Ridges Moraine. We do planning for Caledon in the Oak Ridges Moraine. We have 18 board members. All of our board members are elected council members. So they join our board for 4 years and they represent their municipalities, and they also act as a body that represents the Conservation Authority. Here in your jurisdiction, we have 554 square kilometers of the township. 100% of the township is covered. And some of the notable conservation area pieces we have are the Nottawasaga Bluffs, which we've just done some great works up there. We've put parking off the road, put in a shelter there for washrooms. And they're not potable water washrooms, but they are much needed in that location. We have the New Lowell Dam, and you also have part of the Menacing Wetlands, which largest wetland in most of Ontario. Next slide, please. This year, we did a budget overview program as we did last year. It's a companion that we put out for you that will take you through our budget. It gives you a lot more detail. It demonstrates that, we work in more than the NVCA. We work with regional partners. We work with private industry, work with developers. We work with landowners, homeowners, citizens, universities, water strategy, hydrogeology teams, and municipal councils. And you are our partners. And we have 18 partners, which we're very welcome and happy to have. Next slide, please. I'd like to break down our levy departments for you. We have corporate services. And when you're looking at budget numbers and you look at percentages, when you see something that's 42.9%, it jumps out at you. We are heavily loaded in administrative costs. We're a science delivery organization, and we don't generate tremendous revenues to cover costs. There's just a lot of overhead because we have to have the staff to do the work that we do. We have a planning and regulations team. It's 21% of our delivery. Quite often in the lower part of our watershed, we're compared to Lake Simcoe. Lake Simcoe's budget is in excess of $20 million. Our total budget is about $6.2 million. We're all challenged with delivering planning in a fast, efficient manner. Our planning department is challenged that way. Right now, for this last year, we've had complaints in your region, and we've worked very diligently with the deputy mayor, our board member, to try to alleviate those problems. Human relations, employees, maintaining and keeping employees. In this last year, from June until September, we worked with 1 engineer instead of 3 engineers, 1 CET instead of 2 CETs. We've now been able to fill that complement again. We have the 3 engineers and the 2 CETs. So we're being able to push through plan review. But when you don't have the technical expertise to do the review, it just backlogs. So that was our situation this year. Lake Simcoe's total budget for planning is $5.9 million. So you can see why can't you do it as fast as another CA? It's kind of hard to compare an apple to an orange. We offer environmental stewardship services, which have played an important role in the area here. doing stream bed and water resource work, restoration work. Our watershed science team does monitoring. You may remember each quarter or each 4 years we do a study of the watershed. We talk about the health of the watershed. Without that monitoring data, we can't do that. It tells you the health of the forests, the health of the streams, the health of the local aquifers. And it's very important data that a lot of the municipal residents really enjoy, as well as municipal teams use as planning tools. Flood operations, some category 1 operation that we do. You know, I said last night in Bradford, when we talk about floods, quite often a person will come in and talk about a flood line on their property. Well, it hasn't flooded here in 100 years. Well, I'll tell you that when you look at those pictures from 2017 of the flood in Alliston, and you see a farmer over top of a field that he's really worked hard to grow a beautiful potato crop, the foliage is up 60 centimeters off the surface of the soil, and it's underneath 10 centimeters of water, and his hired men are holding carp up. That's what can happen in a flood, in a 100-year event, in a strategic event that happens, you know, where a storm locates and travels only on one area. So what we're trying to do with flood management isn't prevent flooding, but is to ensure that the infrastructure that you invest in your communities can stay with us in perpetuity. So parents can pass farms down to children and grandchildren and next generations. And that's really all we're trying to do in flood prevention. Our environmental education program is, I think, a crucial tool going into the future. If we don't educate our children on the importance of the environment and the importance of conservation within a balance between development and agriculture and forestry and people living in the community, I think we fail. So we don't want to fail in our future. So we're very active there. We also have a very active forestry department, and we've often been posed by your council in the past on, why are you planting trees on prime agricultural land? Well, the answer to that is we're not planting trees on prime agricultural land. We can statistically show you that we target lands that are in category 5 or 6 agricultural class. When we do plant on class 1, 2, or 3 land, it's usually in a buffer. We may plant 6,000 trees along a riparian bank to protect a watershed. We may do a grassland planting through a field to do a water tread through the field so we don't have erosion in the field to prevent crop loss. But we're really cognizant of the fact that we want to protect both. But we also want to point out that it's a choice, agriculture or forestry. When we go into a forestry program, we're the stewards for the managed forest program in Ontario. So the province deems us the delegate of that managed forest program. So if one of your citizens wanted to put their farm into a managed forest program, we're the advocate for that. We're the conduit for that. So that's our aspect there. We also have a lands program. We own over 6,000 acres of lands in Simcoe County, mostly in Simcoe County, a little bit to the south. We operate conservation areas on them. The majority of our conservation land is passive land ownership. So it's there. We're protecting the land. We just picked up a 50-acre piece in the Minising wetland that was donated. The majority of our land over the years has been donated to us. There are opportunities that come about when we get tax land that the municipalities got some tax arrears on, and they approach us and say, is this something that would work in your inventory? We work closely with the NCC in maintaining that land in MNRNF. Currently, we're doing a land strategy right now for the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks on land development and acquisition and disposition of lands. So that will be available for the public to see as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments that we've had in our watershed. We do this ongoing risk management work, and we work with 9 municipalities. So we do RMO work that's outside of the levy funding to be a category 2 agreement, usually funded outside of levy. The health checks, that's what I alluded to earlier, are the most important part that we do with our work. It sets that up. But when we do work and we do scientific work on a watershed, or you ask us questions about, you know, what are the effects? What are the themes? Without monitoring there, you don't have a starting point, you don't have an end point, and you can't make a calculation of, did the work that was done actually improve and help the environment? So that's the basic need for our monitoring work. Next slide, please. Our education program, in education, we, excuse me, I'm just going to flip the page here. In 2022, we saw over 342 students directly from Clearview to the Tiffin Center. We deliver a grade 4 curriculum for Simcoe County, and we work with the Simcoe County's Catholic School Board as well. Our grade 4 program provides 1 visit to Tiffin and 2 visits to the classroom. We've educated kids in 2023 from 1.5 years old to 90 years of age. And when I say kids, the 90-year-olds are probably as much fun as the kids that get out there on the land. These programs are important, as I mentioned earlier. And Clearview residents participated in our Camp Tiffin program, our nature school program, our festival at Fort Willow. And of course, many people from Clearview come down and attend our spring tonic at the Tiffin Center. Next slide, please. Our stewardship work is incredible. I'm really very proud of it. In a typical year, with the funding that we receive in levy, we get around $150,000 from the 80 municipalities. And that money is magnified through the great work of our manager, Fred Dobbs, and his staff, through grants, through participation with clubs like Bass Pro Shop and their memberships, river fishing groups that support and work with streams in the area. We did some work recently down in Carruthers Park on the MAD that I know the mayor and the deputy mayor were there. And I'd like to thank the connection that the deputy mayor provided for us in acquiring some aggregate from an aggregate developer in your area. That was very important to the project. In the past 5 years, we've done over 62 healthy waters projects here in Clearview. And that involves wetland restoration, grassland restoration, manure storages, nutrient management, tree planting, agricultural erosion reduction, and pollinator patches. You know, we all look at trees and how they're going to sequester carbon, and that's going to save climate change. But we forget about the herbaceous plants and those native grassland plants that can be buffer areas along the woodland run rows between crops. Really, really deep-rooted native grass species can sequester and store carbon into the same levels as many large mature trees. And that's something that's forgiven a lot. We've supported Clearview in the last 5 years with $368,000 in grants to citizens that live in your community the levy's working to do that. Your 150s delivered $368,000 to your residents. I think that's important. We've funded over 167 restoration work inquiries. We've gone out and checked them out. We've done over 21.2 stream bed rehabilitation work, where we've taken an eroded bank and we've been able to work on how to do that. We've developed at the NVC a leading process that's now being championed by conservation authorities and private conservation companies across Canada and the United States, where we're looking at taking what's on the property and not trying to bring inputs in to repair the property. I talked about a gravel pit that you talked about coming in. What we like to do is be able to go to the site. There's been an attack of emerald ash borer. The trees are dead. We pull those trees down with a trackhoe. We knock the branches off. We use the branches to pinion into the bank. We take those 30-foot long trunks and we take a 35-foot backhoe and drive them into the bank, almost like a plank road in the bank. Then we have, with the advent of technology, the ability to take a track hoe, base in the stream, find out the stream bottom elevation, the water depth, how high we want the bank to be above that. And the backhoe can actually come out and scoop a 30-centimeter piece of sod blanket and drop that down on the soil. And we create these ridges and banks that water can overflow on and not erode the banks because they're protected with that area. We also work with another Clearview farm area situation, the Somerville Nurseries. We use a lot of their old Christmas trees that they've collected. We bring them back and we pinion them in for the banks and do the restoration work. And it involves literally thousands of citizens from across all over Ontario that come to do this work. Fred has one of the few people, when I was out in Edmonton, was one of the few names that I recognized immediately coming here because I knew his work before I came to Ontario. So we're blessed to have that type of staff supporting your municipality. Next slide, please. In our forestry program, Rick's been involved for over 30 years. He came to us from the MNR when the MNR really stopped being an operational body or entity in Ontario. We look at the 50 million tree program, a 2 billion tree program, a Trees Canada program. In Rick's 30 years, he's stewarded the planting of 2 million trees in our watershed. That's phenomenal to see that's being done. He manages this past year, over 78,000 trees were planted in our area. In a really banger year, we may plant 150 to 200,000 trees, but we don't go after that. We plant them where they're needed in an efficient manner to try to get the biggest bang for our buck. We protected quite a bit of shoreline stream beds with tree banks, 2.6 kilometers. And Rick's program drew into his program beyond levy $342,000 in funding from exterior partners. And that's the thing that I think is so vitally important when we look at category 1 and we look at category 2 and category 3. Category 3 is a driver and a magnifier for category 1. It reduces the cost of category 1. It brings needed revenue into the community, and it takes that revenue deposit off your stream. We're providing it for you as your partner. Our flood management program, if I could go to the next slide, please. It's so nice that we've got a full complement of engineers now. So we can start to do some flood studies in what's coming up in the next years. The Climate Change Action Lakeshore Group, being Gulf Lake St. Lawrence and the Great Lakes, is providing some funding, potentially up to 75% funding. So we may be able to do some riverine studies, the mouth of the Nottawasaga River. We may be able to do some shoreline studies on the bottom basin, Wasaga. You know, this work is important because that's a tourism area that drives people through your community, that comes here and buys gas and stops and shops and has a meal. I think those are important things to remember when we look at the whole watershed management, because we're more about not just Clearview. Clearview is important, but Clearview is one of 18 links that protects that water system. There's a $7 billion fishery in Ontario, in the Great Lakes. We're the stewards of the Nottawasaga River. If we look at Chinook salmon that are harvested off the coast of Lake Huron on the Michigan side, the majority of those are propagated or grown in the Nottawasaga River. Data supports that that's where they're coming from. We've been able to take the spawning grounds from above Highway 89 down below Highway 89 into the Agilatos Basin. You know, you have your salmon days here. It's a wonderful celebration. You catch a lot of fish in the area, but it's that work that's done on the whole regenerative section that's important. And when we look at that flood management piece and we look at the riverine system, if you took away the absorbent qualities of the Minising wetlands, no more absorption, not going to hold that water back, we just free flow it down a river stream, you'd see 1.5 to 2.2 freeboard meters of water in the McDonald's parking lot in Wasaga Beach. There would be no access on River Road. It would be underwater. So it's vitally important to understand the system is what we look after, and you're part of that system, and a very important part. Next slide, please. Our planning and development team, it's vital. We're tasked with the hard job of sometimes saying no. And that's what gets us in trouble. When a file comes in, it's non-compliant. You know, you see articles in the paper, it says, why should it take 200 days to complete a permit? Well, it didn't take us 200 days to complete the permit. There's a system set out by the province of Ontario called the KELC, which accommodates the time that the permit takes to deliver. The clock runs when the NVCA has the work. When we're doing the work, the clock is ticking, the days that we have the product. When we give the file back to the contractor or the developer or the proponent of the project, the clock stops. Projects start, there may be 2 or 3 year delays, 5-year delays between when it starts. So you get the phone call, I started this project 5 years ago. They're just dragging their butts on this. Why isn't it happening? What can you do? How can you help me? It doesn't take that into consideration. So I think we have to really understand that we're challenged in planning. I alluded to not having a full complement of staff and being behind the 8 ball, but we're one of the fastest growing development areas in all of the province. And from 2018 to present day, we handled over 17,000 interactions pre-consults, planning, permitting applications, you name it. That's a lot. And our staff hasn't grown. So that's one of the things you'll see in the numbers that Cheryl presents, why we want to do that, how we want to try that. It's a new day dawning here. We have to make changes that allow us to develop a faster process, and we need to work with our partners to do that. Next slide, please. Our conservation lands, it deals with Section 28, Section 29 of the Conservation Authorities Act. We maintain and steward these lands for the public trust and the public good. Some of them, like I alluded to at the very start of my talk here, the bluffs, magnificent to walk out and see that area, to stick your head through the keyhole and go there. Maybe not magnificent for our fire friends that have to go out and pull people out of a crevice. That happened here, and it cost a ton of money for people. But you know, that is something that we do have to face. It doesn't just happen in that rock crevice where somebody falls, or you get a rock climber that wants to come and fall off a rock. But we look at what happens in the Minising. If there's a lost soul in the Minising, that's about a $10,000 ticket in one night to try to evolve everybody and get it going. And who pays the brunt for this? You know, when people go out there, they should have a good indication of how they maneuver and how they manage the work in that area. So conservation authority areas are very important to us. We have a lot of situations across this province that we have to deal with, the insects and bugs that are coming through. We get an opportunity to monitor those on our lands and have a little bit of an understanding. You may have heard of oak wilt. Oak wilt has hit Simcoe County. One of the 3 detections of oak wilt happened in Springwater Township. It's been taken care of by the forestry department at Simcoe County. Also landed in Niagara, landed in 2 places in Niagara. It will be something that will affect the landscape, possibly as strongly as emerald ash borer has. So you'll see another species of trees disappear. So to maintain these pockets of trees in areas where there's buffers and sanctity for them, I think it's vitally important. I'm going to pass the slides over to Cheryl now. She's going to take you through our budget. If you have any questions with me, I'd be happy to answer them later. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Doug. Hi, Cheryl.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor and
Welcome.
Council. So I'm going to speak to the not as fun part. You got to hear about our wonderful accomplishments. Now you get to hear about the boring part, which is the numbers. I'll try and make it fairly quick for you. The 2024 draft budget process is pretty typical for our budget process. We bring a budget guideline report to our board in August, at which point they kind of give us an idea of where we're going to go or where we should go. And we bring a draft budget to our board in September. Once that's ratified for distribution, it gets sent out to our municipal partners who have technically 30 days to provide any comments. However, we understand that 30 days can be a little bit quick for some of our municipalities. We have some pretty rural municipalities that don't meet very often. So we have extended it to 60 days on our own accord. So right now, municipalities have until November 17th to provide any comments to us. And then at that point, those comments, along with the draft budget, are brought forward for final approval at our December meeting. One thing to really note this year is that the staff brought forward a request of $200,000 increase to our levy. There was a lot of discussion at our board during that August meeting, as our deputy mayor can attest to. And for the first time in my career, and I'm pretty sure any other financial person here can attest that this never happens, but the board asked us to actually add an additional $200,000 to our budget. And that was to add 2 more people to our planning department. Our CIO has already alluded to the fact that we're really struggling in being able to keep up. As he also mentioned, our Lake Simcoe friends to the south of us, which we're very often compared to, as a lot of our municipalities to the south we share with Lake Simcoe. They have a $5.9 million planning budget and a lot more people and staff than we have. And we actually have more applications coming through the table. So this was one of the ways that the board wants to make sure that we're here to support our municipalities and make sure that we're able to get the applications done in a timely manner. Next slide, please. So how have things changed for the 2024 draft budget? It's bringing new changes to the framework. And that's because, as I'm sure you're aware, the province has made changes to the Conservation Authorities Act and stated that we now have what's called categories 1, 2, and 3 responsibilities. Category 1 responsibilities are our mandatory requirements that we are required to do. So things like our planning, some of our lands work, our flood. Category 2 are municipal directed agreements. So a specific project that we're going to come in and do that's going to support that municipality. And that is things like a risk management official, as our CIO mentioned. We have 9 municipalities that we're the risk management official for. Category 3 are other programs and services that the authority has deemed advisable, and our board has determined that our category 3 items, such as education, part of our lands program, our forestry, our stewardship, those are very vitally important to the work that we do as a conservation authority. So the NVCA, thank you for changing the slide. The NVCA has changed their budget as required. In the draft budget booklet, you'll see that there is a category 1 budget and a categories 2 and 3 budget. And then I've also included a combined budget. And I did that not to confuse anybody, but to hopefully help some people, because I know a lot of people are still looking at our budget, how it was done in the past. And so this gives you a really good indication of how things have changed year over year, because this is the first year of the change. Oh, same slide, sorry. We also completed the 2024 budget with the assumption that all 18 municipalities are going to enter into MOUs with us for the categories 3 items. This was done for a couple of reasons. The first one is that over 70% of our 18 municipalities have already told us that they are supportive or have signed MOUs. And also the fact that our municipal partners needed budget numbers from us. And we couldn't wait until the MOUs were all signed. Deadline is December 31st. However, we have requested an extension from the ministry because we have some municipalities that are a little bit behind in being able to bring those forward. If for some reason there are municipalities that do not support it, we will use reserves for the 2024 year to make up any deficit that occurs, and then we'll make those adjustments within our 2025 budget. An important thing to note is that all of our programs and our 2 different budgets are very much interlinked. And this is due primarily to cross charges. So things that are overhead costs that are expensed out to the other departments. So therefore, if a change is made within one program, so let's say our education program adds another employee, we do our cross charges based on the number of FTEs in each department. So education's costs would go up in cross charges and everybody else's would go down slightly. And so that can make a big change when you're looking at things between categories 1 and 3. If you make a change in category 3 for either up or down staff levels, that will affect category 1 budget because it will also go up or down as well. It can get really complicated, so I apologize for that. Right now, another thing that's really important to note is that our 2024 budget, the category 3 budget, is actually subsidizing the category 1 budget. So if you look at, when you look at the budget, you'll see that there's a deficit showing in the category 1 budget and a surplus showing in the category 3. And that's because the category 3 items are able to make money in ways that some of our category 1 programs cannot. And then they're going to come through and subsidize that over into the category 1 programs. So it's helping eliminate some additional levy pressure in the category 1 area. Next slide, please. So for Clearview's portion of the operating budget, we are asking under category 1 for $140,590. Under our proposed categories 2 and 3, which is really just category 3 because category 2 doesn't have any levy, is $16,190 for a total operating budget request of $156,780. Next slide, please. This slide touches a bit more on what our CIO has spoken to previously and how we take your levy and we grow it. So our municipal investment of just over $3.1 million of levy, we add the small, tiny little portion that the province gives us, a little bit of money we get from the federal government, as well as grants and user fees that we obtain. And we grow that investment to just under $6.5 million for the 2024 year. Next slide, please. This chart shows and highlights how conscientious the NVCA has been in maintaining the levy at a rate that is as small of an impact as possible to our municipal partners. You can see that from 2013 to 2021, the cost of levy declined per household or per CVA per 100,000. There were some small increases that occurred during 2022 and 2023. And with the additional levy that has been requested for staff, the 2024 number is returning to similar numbers as was in 2013. However, it's still below or just around the same number. This is also the first year we've broken out the category 3 items from the budget. And so you'll see there's that second category down at the bottom. And that's just because we have to break it out for you to understand that. And again, this is a cost per $100,000 of current value assessment. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this slide is part of the program overview that is there, is attached to the budget. And it highlights not only just the great work we do, but how financially responsible we try to be. This is a visual aid for our readers. It's not a scientific levy breakdown per resident. All I do is I take the information provided to me from the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, which they get from MPAC, which is about 2 years behind in our numbers. And I get the current value assessment, and I also get the population. So what I've done is I just took our total levy, divided it by the number of people within our watershed, and that works out to be about $15.31 per watershed resident. And I've broken it down as well, so you can see what our individual departments are. And this is, again, the total budget combined. Next slide, please. This slide breaks it down just for the category 1. So of that $15.31, $13.73 of that is done through our category 1 programming. And again, this is our mandatory program. Next slide, please. And this one shows the category 3 impact. It's a whole $1.58 per resident. And again, you can see the breakdown there of how much per resident for the individual programs. Next slide, please. The last thing I'm going to speak about is our 2024 asset management. As I'm sure some of you are aware, we instituted an asset management plan about 5 years ago to make sure that we had some funding coming in for our assets. This year, we've actually had to break it down again into the categories 1 and category 3, really eliminating the red tape. It took up a lot of administration time, but we are looking for Clearviews for category 1, $6,481, and for categories 3, $1,038 for a total of $7,519. You can see there that some of our scheduled capital projects, obviously not as significant as what a municipality has, but we do have some dam safety reviews that are mandatory and required by the government to ensure that we're making sure that our water retention is occurring. Next slide, please. So this slide shows our total request from you as a municipality. As mentioned, our total request for levy was $156,780. With asset management at $7,519, we're looking at a total request of $164,299. And that is all the slides that I have. So we'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Cheryl. I appreciate that presentation. Doug, I hope that you're able to achieve this budget and add those 2 planning staff members that your board has directed, and I hope that you keep them very busy. Members of council, do you have any questions to the members from the NVCA? I'm looking around. Mr. Beelan. Yes, go ahead, Marty.
Thank you, Your Worship. You mentioned that you're doing some work at the New Lowell Dam. Just wondering what that work is going to be. And my second question is, do you have any plans for Coates Creek, which feeds the New Lowell Dam? Used to have a lot of speckled trout, and I don't think there's any in there now. And the New Lowell Dam used to have a lot of rainbow trout, and there seems to be very few of them left. I'm just wondering if you have any plans for looking at that.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Beelan. Okay, sorry, I'm really bad with names and I'm not wearing my glasses. I'll answer the first part of your question and then I'll have our CIO answer the second one. What we've had done is a dam safety review. So what that means is they come out and there's a company or consultant that comes out and looks at the dam, looks to see if there's any damage or maintenance that needs to be done, timelines to get it done to make sure that it's working effectively. And then from that report, we take those recommendations and we implement a plan for how we're going to get those remediated if need be, fixed if need be, items we need to buy if need be, like stop logs. If we notice our stop logs are starting to get worn down, that's what we'll do after that fact. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Okay, thanks. But your wording says your dam safety review for Utopia as well as the Tiffin ponds. And then your comment says work to be completed at Newell and
Yes.
Tottenham. So it sounded like you have some work that you're in progress there, but it's just all safety review then.
Through the mayor, we've done the safety review. We're waiting on the results.
If I could continue to comment on that through the mayor, to you, sir. We have discovered that there is a small imperfection in the dam there. That's what the review was to target, and that, so that we've done some remediation work on the dam itself. That's the work we completed on it. To speak to your fisheries question, that area of the tributary you're speaking to is on our radar, but our strategy right now has been, we've started in the Adjutathos Basin. We've done a tremendous amount of work below 89. We're moving up into the Pine and the Mad River area now, and we'll continue to move north up the watershed. It's definitely on Fred's radar. I can follow up with you after this and give you a little bit more information, but speckles are a big part of us. We want to see them back in the water, just like the credit's facing a loss of brown trout. We're certainly facing cold water stream loss in speckles. Bear Creek is one we've done some recent work on in Bear Creek over near our Tiffin area for speckled work, but it's definitely on our radar. Thank you.
Okay, I do help out at the hatchery in Collingwood, and we were looking for a place to put speckled trout last year. Couldn't find one. And we just released some brown trout and they had difficulties finding a spot. So I'd really like it if you could find out what we can do to make it work in New Lowell in Coates Creek.
We also have a fish hatchery in that we utilize. That strategy's dropped all over the province. Our fish go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Good luck with that, Marty. Any other members of council with any questions for the NVCA? Yes. See, Paul's got his card up. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I'd like to speak a bit as the member representing Clearview Township. And one of the biggest things we as a member on the, or myself being the member on the board, deflect a lot of the concerns, and we don't get a lot of compliments. We get a lot of complaints, of course. The compliments this year, what they did at the Crothers Park is phenomenal. And what Fred Dobbs and his team did is people don't always see that. What our biggest, I guess the biggest reaction I always get is in regards to planning. And it's so nice to hear that we are now up to a full complement of engineers, 3 engineers and 2 CETs. And that's been a bottleneck for us.
Yep.
And so the concern, and it was expressed by our board, that if we need more help, we run such a lean operation that we're going to get more help for you to make it better. We hear the residents of Clearview expressing their concerns. It was even so, I was so impressed when we had our meeting last spring and they started talking about putting a used motor in a pickup truck in order to cut costs. In this day and age, it's one of those things, we shouldn't have to do that. And so now it's nice to see on our budget that we're going to get a couple of new pickup trucks because we have trucks running the road just like the township does and everything else. So understand that the group is really trying to lean forward on it. The comment came from one of our Barrie councillors that they've even had to go so far as to put a planner on the Lake Simcoe board for them to work only on their work. So we've got a good staff there. They're working. And as was explained to me by Doug even before the meeting, they have a triage meeting every week. So they're looking at our applications to try and make things better and stuff like that. Is it perfect yet? No. And of course, as a council, we always have the opportunity to provide input if we see areas that we can improve and give them suggestions and stuff like that. So that type 1, I guess the big thing I say is with our type 1 services are very critical to our planning department. So, we'll work with that. The other thing that wasn't really touched on, we had the Watson and Associates report done for us, which reviewed a lot of our fees. Our conservation fees, what we charge in relation to a lot of other services from other commercial services, are very minimal or very lean. And I use the analogy when we were talking, when Cheryl was speaking, about $15.31 per resident to do all the training, all the outreach programs and our planning. It's pretty minimal. So we are looking at it from the board is looking at it from every angle. The Watson report was a recommendation, and it shocked some people who did see the Watson report. There are some fee recommendations that are almost 100% increase in costs. However, we are looking at that right now, and it's the two things we're looking at right now is to get better services, and it was identified also the opportunity to streamline the application process. The staff is working on that. So they're going the right way. And we, in this day and age, when we see the minimal cost increases in relation to some of the budget increases that we will be looking at as a council, it's not significant in terms of the overall picture. So I'm pleased with what I see, and I think it's something that we will make improvements with the Conservation Authority over the coming year, but they're headed the right way. So anyways, those are my comments to you. It's not a question, but more of a comment on what's going on. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Paul, would you like to respond?
Through the mayor, if I could, just to touch on a couple of things. There's been a freeze on our wages and on our revenue generation for fees, all of 2023. It's still in place. We don't know if it's not going to be lifted, so we may not see this increase. When we talk about fee increase, we really try to engage. We first met with Build Simcoe County. We took that, tabled it to Build Ontario, so the whole Build group got a bit of a comment on it. We work with the Georgian Triangle group up on the basin of the northern part of the watershed. We met with our advisory committee in agriculture, talked to that aspect of which members are OFA members and Simcoe County Council agricultural members. We got their feedback on how we move forward. We then took that information to our board, got the feedback from all of our 18 board members, and now we've made some amendments to it. We'll be taking it out and getting more public input. So it's not something we take lightly. One thing that Watson did clearly point out was that we have to improve our cost recovery costs on our planning fees and costs. And let's be fair to everybody on the table. Bill 123, Bill 109, that 90-day window we're talking about and having municipal partners turning money back to the province, we don't want to be there. We don't want to play that game. This is going to be an important tool to take us there and prevent that from happening as best we can. It isn't going to take us way above the aspect. It's going to get us back to a level playing field. The last calculation report that we did for 2022, we were at 90% or 98% on 90 days and 92% timeline delivery on 60 days. We probably won't hit those numbers as high. We just did one for Springwater for their council. They asked the information. We were at 93% in Springwater. We were at 92% in Springwater the year before. So it's comparable. But the funding that if you deem you're available to provide for us, will greatly assist your teams. And to speak to the MOU, I've worked with Amy and John on this topic. John isn't feeling great today, and we were going to meet tomorrow. We're not going to meet, but we shared information about the Category 3 programs, the Category 1 programs. So rest assured that your CAO and your Director of Planning have worked very diligently on that with our team, and we should be able to bring that back to your table shortly, I believe. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Doug. I know that Councillor Deneen, who's online, would like to ask a question. So I'll go to you, Phyllis.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just through you to Mr. Hevner, I just saw in the report that you've got some EV chargers at Tiffin. I was just wondering how many.
We need an EV charger for Councillor Deneen. Her internet is just cut out.
Probably asking how.
Sorry, Phyllis.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry
again,
about that. Maybe if I took my picture down, it would be better. I just wondered how many EV chargers there were at the Tiffin Center, and maybe talking to the Deputy Mayor's comment about replacing an engine in a pickup. Were you folks aware that we have a lease agreement for pickup trucks? Maybe that would be something you could look at in the future as well.
Excellent point, Counselor. So do you think you could address those two questions? Thank you.
So through the mayor to the councillor, thank you. We have 2 EV chargers. They were actually provided, the funding for those provided through a grant that we applied for, so there was no charge. We have, I believe there's 1 in our compound for when we have future vehicles that are EV, and then there's 1 in our parking lot for visitors to be able to utilize. With regards to your second point, I was not aware of that, and I would be happy to obtain more information if somebody could send that my way, and we can definitely look into that in the future.
For certain. Just quickly, we did enter into an agreement. I think it's been 2 years now that we've been working with Enterprise to deliver us vehicles that are on a lease program. So we found it to be very favorable for the municipality. So it's certainly something you guys could consider too.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much, Mayor.
Phyllis, did you have anything more you want to add?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank
thank you. All right, if there's nothing further from members, nothing further, excellent. Okay, Doug, I did give you a little note that I was very pleased to hear about the 2 extra planners, which I would hope that would keep the decision making at the triage meetings moving forward in an expedient way to deliver services for all the services and the taxpayers and developers that are asking for these reports right across the whole area. So let's hope that that's one of the best steps you can have. And I don't mind telling you, and I've said this publicly before, that I'm always impressed at the work that you do with the budgets that you have. You know, you're showing a $6.1 million budget this year. I remember having conversations when you were just exceeding $5 million and still shocked at the amount of work that you do with that limited amount of budget. So good luck. You know, keep up, keep doing what you can do with the budgets that are provided. So good luck.
Through the mayor, if I may. Thank you very much for that. And it is a pleasure to work with Clearview staff. We have a good working relationship. I have great faith in John. I have really enjoyed developing the relationship I have with him. And best of luck on your budget deliberations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for your presentation today. Very good. Council, we're going to move on to, actually, Mr. Ferguson, are you on there? Did you have something you want to add? Nope, he's disappeared again. If he wants in, the clerk's going to let me know. Okay.
I just wanted to reciprocate the comment that Doug passed on to us. He's been very decent to work with, and any questions that we've asked, he's gotten back to us right away. So we have a good relationship.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Thanks for jumping in there. All right. Take care. Have a good afternoon. Council, we're going to move right on to the Creemore Business Improvement Area. I see we have our treasurer is here and our president is here. Sarah and Nancy, do you guys want to come right up and we'll get started on your presentation. Nice to see you guys. Welcome, welcome.
Are these on?
I hope so.
Okay, we don't have any fancy slides.
Okay.
We're just going to talk about garbage and street decor. This is the first time we've been invited to the actual budget meeting, so we weren't really sure what to expect. But I'm not going to go over the budget. Sarah is, because she's the treasurer. And but I just wanted to do just a quick recap of 2023. It's been great. We've kept right on budget. We've had a couple of programs like our Take a Seat program. Now we have 37 chairs that have been painted. People love them. One of the things that I've really noticed this year that I just wanted to put out there was we had a lot of festivals. We had like 19 or 20 significant festivals where there was well over 1,000 people attended. I saw yourself there a few times. These are everything from Creemore, the BIA sponsored to in partnership, or they were sponsored by one of our businesses like the Copper Kettle and the Tourist More. But we also, what the biggest thing that I noticed this year was the community organizations coming together and making Creemore a community-orientated place. I mean, everyone had their own little things going on, from the Horticultural Society, the Purple Hill Society, to the Clearview Church, but they all seemed to come out of the woodwork this year and work together. It was like this collective of people that just wanted to have a really great community. And the BIA was really privileged to have a majority of those festivals and I guess festivals and parties in our downtown core, which really increased our sales, which made everybody come down to the main road. But the other branch was the community organization, but the other one was the volunteers. We've always had, in the past, the festival's been really difficult for the BIA board because we had to run them. We were the boots on the ground. We were the ones setting them up, dragging them down, putting it, like, doing everything. But the last couple of years, especially this year, the amount of volunteers that have come out to help us, whether it's just attending the festivals, to cashing the bars, to taking all the bars down, to everything, it's been phenomenal. So we're really happy about that. I had a few things that we did our social media. It didn't work out as well as we wanted it to. We've kind of learned our lesson, and now we're actually doing it internally, which is saving us a lot of money. And we also know what we're talking about. One of our board members has stepped up and she's doing a really good job. But yeah, that's about it for recapping. There's nothing really exciting other than that. We've got, we had the Sundays in the park in the Village Green every single Sunday for 9 weekends in a row. There was a live band, and in the morning there was an exercise group, whether it's the bounce fit or the Tai Chi or whatever it was. There was always something different. Again, it brought everybody in, great community. And then we had our sponsored things like the Copper Kettles, the Tourist More. We had our Easter egg hunt. We had the Summer Solstice, which was great. We had the Harvest Festival, which was another phenomenal event. And we've got 2 more coming up. And the small halls was great. That went on forever, it seemed, but it just kept bringing people in and bringing people out. Well, it did. And it was wonderful. And the Purple Hills, the Arts Society, it was a really good year, and we're really happy about it. Sarah's going to talk about the budget for 2024, and that's it. Take it away. Thanks.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. So I am Sarah Hirschoff, the treasurer of the Creemore BIA, and how we have got to this document, which is our budget for 2024, is that in the summer, we convened a committee that included myself and Lori Severn to create a draft budget so that we had something to work with. Lori and I then brought that to our board for their review. Some changes were made, and then we took that to our members at our AGM, which happened just a few weeks ago. And our membership voted in favor of the budget that you see before you. So in terms of the budget, there are not that many changes year over year. Last year, some of you may remember that 2023 was the first time that we had a significant levy increase. Our levy is collected from our members annually through the municipality, and that money we put to work. So we have the $25,000 levy. There will be no changes for 2024. And then again, with our fundraising, we pretty much expect that to be on track, the same as what we did in 2023. The changes that you'll see for 2024 really are around the events and the way that we are working with other community partners to do that. We know that in 2024, the Creemore Community Foundation will not have the same resources that they had for 2023 when it comes to programming in the park. So in the months of July and August, you can see that under our events budget, we have some money tucked in there, $4,000 per month. And the intention there is that we'll be able to offer them significant support. It is such a great partnership for us because, as Nancy was saying, in the past, if we wanted to activate the community, we had to actually get out there and activate. And quite frankly, for us, money can sometimes be easier than finding time and energy. So you can see that. And then again, in October, we have another $2,000 set aside. And that again is going to be for programming in the Village Green for their harvest activities. So that is a significant change for us. Everything else is fairly similar in the events category. In terms of the streetscape category, you can see again, we had some minor changes from last year. Some of the concerns that we're hearing from our membership is that our streets are a little bit shabbier than what they would like to see. So, and it's mostly the greenscaping. So it's the trees, it's the weeds, it's that sort of thing. And that's something that is kind of a two-prong issue for us. One is that we struggle just understanding the timeline and whose responsibility it is, as well as just getting out there and finding somebody who can actually do it. But this year, what we have budgeted is $5,000 for maintenance of trees. It's my understanding that the municipality may be willing to take that on, so that could shift our budget slightly. And then through the rest of the summer, we do have money budgeted to help us keep the streets weed free, specifically around the trees. Again, the trees are vitally important to us in the village. They really, it's a visual reminder of our commitment to the environment, as well as you know, being just a beautiful thing for all of us to look at. So, you know, when you're thinking about your budgeting, and I don't know where it sits in other areas, but looking at those trees, streetscape, those things really matter to us at the BIA. With all of these activities, you can see that we are showing a deficit situation. Mercifully, we have quite a bit of money in the bank with retained earnings, or we're in a position where we can work our fingers to the bone and try and do a little bit more fundraising. Also, generally, we sometimes struggle to get all of the activities we hope to completed within the year. So often we do plan for a deficit and end up at a pretty much break-even budget year over year. So that, for instance, would be the case in 2023, where at the end of the year, we had $5,000 in retained earnings. Just a note to council that though we do collect $25,000, we do have a significant amount of fundraising and sponsorship that are our initiatives, and that 100% of the money that we collect in levies is being spent, and mostly in the category of maintenance and garbage. So you can see right there, you're spending the $25,000 just picking up garbage, taking care of trees. So everything else is really, you know, the extras that we commit to because we care about our community and we feel that this is what it takes to create a vibrant business area. So if there are any questions, I am happy to receive them.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Nance. Members of council, do you have any questions to the representatives from the BIA? I see Mr. Beelan is quick with his card once again. Go ahead, Marty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sarah, when you have the sponsorship here, does that include those great big chairs?
Yes, through the mayor. The sponsorship includes a few things. There may be some money tucked in there from the Santa Claus Parade sponsorship, and the chairs as well.
So
that's
next,
actually the seat program.
So next year, do people sponsor the chairs again?
Yes, it's an annual sponsorship program that we created, and the cost is $100 per year per chair. And we have a very easy to administer program where we basically just contact the same people year over year and then do some community outreach. This year we did increase the program. With that, there were increased costs because of course we have to buy chairs. So this year it was a bit of a break even, and then next year we'll see that.
Yeah, because you don't have to make the chairs.
Yeah, or paint them. Yeah. And you can see that there is a line item for furnishing that should capture the cost of those chairs in particular.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Beelan's B is going to take out a tree or a chair, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yes, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. There, a quick question. I noticed your line item on flowers. Do you work with a horticultural group down there at all, or do you try and do this yourself, or can you explain that?
So we've been lucky enough to work with Heidi at Rural Roots, and
Yes.
she has been doing our design the last couple of years. We have in the past approached the Horticultural Society, but as you can imagine, through COVID and with the park, there's been a lot of shifting there. So I do think there is an opportunity there. The cost, I'm fairly certain that we're getting a preferable cost from Heidi, and she's certainly wonderful to work with.
No, Heidi's a great person. We deal with her as well. And I just see what I know. My wife's involved with the Horticultural Society here in Stayner, and they do a lot of good work. So please reach out. They can maybe help you with some of your costing. And
things we have done to associate ourselves and collaborate is that this year we changed our color scheme so that we were matching within the horticultural park. They made choices, we made choices. So there's certainly partnerships there. Our goal is not to put pressure on other community groups. We know that they're in the same situation that we are, which is trying to deliver as many programs as possible with their vision, but everything we can do and all the advice we can take. I did speak to Gail about some ideas around plants as well. So it is a good idea. We want to engage as many people in the community as we possibly can.
That's good. And I can tell you my ears are still ringing. I was down to watch the Mudmen play on the Sunday. One of the best groups you've had down there in a while. And I've seen them so many places across Ontario because I follow them a bit now. And it was a good group, good day listening to those guys. But anyways.
Yeah, we've been very, very lucky with the commitment of the Creemore Community Foundation and the staff at the Creemore Village Green. It's such a gift to us to have that. It has made an impact for our businesses, and we're so grateful for that. And we're grateful for the space, which is a Clearview Park. So thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you very much for those compliments. Is there anybody else on members of council? Any questions? I'll put a couple quick questions out there. One, back to Nancy, your comments about collaboration and working with other organizations and how volunteers have come out is very heartwarming, because we have been very, very blessed with great volunteers across our whole community. I know you folks are both volunteers, so I, of course, always thank you for the work you do. So I'm just wondering about your relationships with the Canada Day festivities with the Legion. Is there a connection there, or is there anything more we can do or you can do to help? It's Canada Day for this community of Clearview is very much focused on the Creemore Legion. Now, we do some things here in Stayner. Certainly we have a little parade, but there's a lot of real community oriented festivities happening in Creemore for Canada Day. So I'm wondering where the BIA sits on that.
So it's my understanding that there is going to be a dramatic change to the way that the Creemore Legion is able to administer the Canada Day program for 2024. Norm Nordstrom, who long suffering, he's been doing this for a long time.
Yes.
And
Speaking of great volunteers,
I think he's in his 80s now, and it's time for him to step back. I know that they're currently seeking somebody to take over the Canada Day festivities. And I also know that they're looking to, at this point, there are no plans for the fireworks, which I think is a significant loss to the municipality. It's my understanding that they do intend to continue with the daytime programming, but the cost of the fireworks and the coordination of that is something beyond what they feel they can do as an organization. At this point, we have received a letter with that information from the Legion, but we haven't made a commitment to any further support for that. We have been in the same position before, where the Legion has run an event and we've carried it on in the form of the Santa Claus Parade. And quite frankly, I don't know that our organization could take on another significant event, specifically around the fireworks. For our membership, if we took it on, it would be a civic duty. I don't think that it really meets our mandate, which is to promote the downtown area. But I would certainly encourage the municipality, if they have any capacity to do that, to take on those fireworks. I think Clearview as a whole would miss them. That's my opinion. I'm speaking from my opinion, not the opinion of the BIA, but that's my understanding of the situation as it sits right now.
Well, my personal opinion would be very much aligned with yours, that we need to do something there. So, okay. So perhaps what we need to do is speak with the Legion to get a little bit of a better understanding. The BIA is an instrument of the municipality. So if there's something we can do as a municipality to support that event, we could do it through the BIA or whatever. But I think we need to get an answer to this before we get to the end of this budget. So if we can, I'd like to give an opportunity to recall that issue later on when we get in further into our budget. Is that okay?
Yes, for sure. Mr. Mayor, if the township is interested in working with the BIA, I'm sure we could put one of our board members in those meetings and hopefully help where we can.
Great. And the last thing, of course, Sarah, you and I have had long talks about this. I need to bring it up. Budget time. Garbage.
I love garbage.
I know it's a tough one, and it really is, but we need it. Obviously, we need the service that's being done. So is there anything that we could do to, as a municipality, to sort of help that along? And I know you've been working with the foundation on the park garbage. They've been addressing that through their staff resources for sure. And I see it's in your budget. It's a significant part of your budget, to be frank.
It's a huge part of our budget. It's important to us that our barrels get cleaned regularly, and we're lucky that we have a community member that's willing to do it at a very reasonable rate.
Right.
He too is aging, but is willing to stick with us again for 2024. So we're very lucky that way. Things that would help us is, for instance, we pay for a bin through Georgian Waste. If we had the ability to utilize a bin that belonged to the municipality specifically, we would be able to reduce some of our costs that way. In the event that there was staff that could be given the task of removing garbage from the bins, that would also remove the pressure from our budget and give us more money to spend on marketing and events. But these are things that we've picked up over the years because they were priorities to us and didn't really fall within what the council of the time considered important. I know that with the strategic plan, as well as some of the research you've done with recreation, that the small town experience has been kind of highlighted as something that Clearview really needs for tourism and economic development. So, if there is more money to be put towards those things, really, we find it quite easy to get community support for events and beautification. Those are fun things to put money towards. But if the municipality was able to help with some of that infrastructure stuff and some of the less glamorous items like garbage, we would be in a position to put money and maybe even leverage what we already do to get more money from the community for some of the fancier stuff.
Okay.
So,
yeah, so I hear you, and certainly the role of the BIA to support the beautification of the business district is a sort of a primary objective of what you're trying to do. So I think we need to have another look at that and see, to make sure that that your members appreciate the importance of the beautification part, that it is a critical part of why we do this, and so garbage is part of that. We have to get that stuff out of there to enhance the beautification. So I'm hoping that we can have that conversation and continue it. Sorry, but we will be talking more garbage. And
we could talk bathrooms.
I know we can talk bathrooms too, but we'll get to that when the recreation department gets their chance at this. Okay. But that is certainly something that's on my radar. So I'm taking a look at that myself. So,
that's
okay.
Very much appreciated. If those items were kind of shared between the municipality and the BIA, it would make a huge difference to us, specifically around the fact that I'm a little uncertain in terms of whether our hiring practices are best practices within the municipality. That's always a concern I have when we're using community members as paid helpers, and also just the sustainability of that.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a model that I think is something that will be able to continue after we are done with our current helper.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for the heads up on that, and appreciate the work that you've done, and to all your members and your executive, obviously, that are great volunteers. So thanks for that. If there's nothing further from members, seeing nothing from Phyllis. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation today.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. All right, council. The good news is we're moving on to page 2. And our timing's pretty good. We're going to move to administration. Kelly is going to lead us off on this one. I know that administration covers a lot actually in the overall budget. So we will go to Kelly McDonald, our treasurer. She's going to lead us off with that. I know John Ferguson is still with us, so he can jump in there as necessary. Hi, Kelly.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, members of council, and welcome to the 2024 budget deliberations. I'm going to start it off with the finance department, general administration. So that's finance, IT, human resources, clerk's department, economic development. I think I hit everybody. We're kind of the whole administration building, other than the planning side. If you get to one of the back pages, you'll see our summary, our operating and capital summary. I haven't put it up on the screen just strictly because it never shows up nicely. Right now, we're sitting at about 7.26% increase. So that is approximately $273 per average household in Clearview, which is set at $315,000 worth of assessment. So all the presentations you'll see today and next week, that's where we are. We do have room for improvement. And as I mentioned in my opening remarks, after the presentations on the 15th, I'm going to kind of throw out some options for council for deliberation. And then when they come back to the council chambers on December 5th, that's your chance to recommend, delete, add, change, and prepare your budget that'll be presented to the public on December 11th. This is just sorry, Krista, next slide. Oh no, go back one. There we go. Just a quick name drop for all of our department. We finally have our entire finance department squad online, so that's fantastic. Stuart was our latest addition. So yeah, between my staff and the staff in all the departments, really, they work hard to get this budget information together to me to be able to get it to you guys. And I think we do a decent job of it. Just a few of the services the township administration is looks after. And as I mentioned, on top of these ones as well, you also have all of the services of the clerks between getting council together, working with the cemeteries, and working with people for commissioners of oath. We have the HR department who is working with every township employee and volunteer. It's a busy place. So our information services, sorry, Krista, next slide. Information services, they do our equipment setup, our deployment, training on all of the equipment, server management, data management, network management, security against internal threats, external threats, employees randomly clicking emails. I'm sure everybody's done their security training by now. And this maintenance extends across all township facilities. So it's not just this building, it's the library, it's the fire halls, it's the recreation buildings. So everybody's seen the emails come out from McGlenna out to PW or out to the library. So she's a busy girl. So there's a couple of changes in the general administration operating budget. We have the development charge background study that we have to have completed this year. Ours expires in August of 2024. There are no actual tax implications on that one, as currently it's completely funded from development charges. We started the website upgrade this year, sorry. We're completing it for 2024. And again, there's no tax implication as that's all being funded from the modernization grant we received. And then we have an actuarial study that's $5,000 that we are required to do every 4 years. Next. So the main changes in just the administration section of the budget are the transfers to reserve. For the 2023 budget, council had us postpone the transfer to the Affordable Seniors Housing Reserve. I've gone back to the original resolution and started from square one. So there is $100,000 in there for council discussion on whether or not they want to continue with that program. There's also an increase to the Collingwood General Marine Hospital Reserve. This will bring us up to our maximum $300,000 per year that will be contributing to that reserve. Next slide. And then you'll have this in your package. It will be much easier for you to see there. It just basically breaks down what all of the changes are in all of the operating. And next slide. IT. So our IT department is one person, and I'm sure everybody's had contact with her from picking up your laptop or not being able to get your emails working properly or losing your power bar. We've all, on a regular basis, go through McGlenna. This department is the one department that I am begging for an increase. This is just a small taste of McGlenna's responsibilities. So it's the server replacement, it's the laptop upgrades, it's the software upgrades, it's the managing staff working with software and software upgrades. We've got cybersecurity improvements going on. We're starting things like penetrant testing, which is an external source attempting to basically hack our systems, and it'll give us an idea of where our weaknesses lie, and hopefully where our strengths are. We have a general idea of where they are. Unfortunately, our hands are tied by our software providers, but we are working through that. So for the IT department changes, we are requesting an assistant from Aglena, more to look after the day-to-day out to public works, out to library, out to fire. New laptops come in, they all need to have the software installed. They have to have the security updated. They have to have emails set up. Someone that can take charge of that kind of day-to-day and leave Aglena open for the things that she really needs to be focusing on, which is the security. We've seen every day people are getting hacked on a regular basis. Even with all of our protections, there are regular phishing emails coming through on our work email as well. That type of security is something we need to really, really focus on. So that's why we're requesting a new staff member. And this change will impact the IT budget by approximately $80,000. Go next slide. So that is the one FTE under salary, wages, and benefits. So the next slide, our CAO, John Ferguson, is going to speak to the economic development.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Your Worship. So we've been looking at our economic development matters in the community, and we're going to be proposing a new position in economic development. If you can move to the next slide. Currently, we have special events. We'll be continuing with 55,000. Community improvement plan is 50,000. And then the final bullet on this page is the community economic development officer. Can you put it to the next slide, please? So it's not an exhaustive position description. There's certainly many things that come into play, but overall, we want to continue on with a lot of the very good things that we're doing. Maybe start to work in the underserviced areas and to see if we can generate some interest in other parts of our community as well. Some parts do very well, and other parts I think struggle a little bit with volunteerism and whatnot. And we think that this position could help with that as well, building on a lot of the very good things that are happening in recreation right now. But the two overlap, and we think there's an opportunity here. We're not asking for a budget increase for this position. There is a reserve that was established several years ago, and our intent is to recommend to council that this would be a 2-year contract position. To see how it works. This position will also be involved with the strategic plan initiative process. So somebody's monitoring that on a regular basis and keeping it updated and eventually keeping the dashboards updated that the public will see and be able to monitor where we are. And so that position will be working with various departments, but it's not a position that would be over any of the directors. That position has to, I think, work delicately in the environment that they're in because they work with so many different departments, and it takes a real a strong person with interpersonal skills to really manage that and make that happen. But this is something that we're not asking for council to approve right now, but we will be putting that forward for council to consider going forward. And that's about all I have to say about the economic development position.
All right. Thank you very much, John. We can continue on. Kelly, do you have anything more? And then we can go to members of council.
Thank you, Worship. We now have the clerks and the bylaw enforcement department coming up for their presentation.
Okay.
Thank you, Chrissy. Yeah, thanks for the next slide. So good afternoon. As many of you already know, I'm Sasha Helmke-Plater, and I have the great pleasure as the Director of Legislative Services to provide an overview of some of the key projects proposed for 2024 as it relates to the Clerk's Department and bylaw enforcement. These two departments are comprised of 6 staff members, including myself. We also have our Deputy Clerk, Krista Pasco, here. Our committee coordinator is Lexi Edwards. Our supervisor of bylaw enforcement is Joseph Paddock, and our other bylaw enforcement officer is Kevin Harrod. Additionally, we have 8 crossing guards, 5 of them are full-time, and then we have 3 spares that are managed under the bylaw enforcement department. And as well, we are recruiting for our new records management coordinator, and we hope to have that position filled by the end of the year. Next slide, please. So for the clerk's department, our operating budget, as Kelly mentioned, is captured under administration. So I'm highlighting the key projects that we're working on that have a budget impact outside of operations. So as council is aware, we are moving forward with the council chambers accessibility renovation. The working group has been meeting to finalize the plans and the drawings, as well as the technology features of the new renovation. The next step in this process will be able to present to the Accessibility Advisory Committee and then provide council with approval before going to actual tender. I've highlighted on the slide the current funding that's available for this project. Of note, within the amount for the modernization grant, we are proposing to use some funds to go towards speaker and microphone system at the Stain Arena Community Hall. The idea is to reuse some equipment from the current council chambers that would be looking to be upgraded for the community hall. So adding this system at the hall will benefit not only the community and user groups, but council and staff when we use that facility for public meetings and the use of microphones for accessibility there. So once the tender process for the renovation project is complete, we'll know certain with whether it's within our budget amount or if we're over. If the project does come over budget, dependent on the amount, there is an opportunity for council to use the administration building reserve without affecting taxation. However, a report would be provided to council at that time if the tenders came in over budget and we had a shortfall. Next slide, please. For bylaw enforcement, within the 2024 budget, we have proposed adding an additional $10,000 to the property standards consulting budget. As most of you are aware, property standards is a bylaw the council has directed staff to do proactive enforcement on. This year, bylaw enforcement staff has been very active, focusing their attention on high visibility areas, which are dangerous, unsecure, or vacant buildings. This year alone, 44 orders were issued. An issue that we did found during the enforcement measures this year is the dropping of garbage, debris, derelict vehicles, or trailers on township-owned property to evade having to pay for the removal of the property owner from their own property. Specifically, the township had an instance where a derelict trailer was left abandoned within the township road allowance, and the owner of the trailer couldn't be ascertained. So we had to take that cost on ourselves to remove that trailer. And the tipping fees at the dump is quite large for those types of older trailers. So for 2024, and recognizing this, we're asking for proactive enforcement and to have an additional $10,000 to maybe cover those shortfalls where we see more instances of this removal going on to township property. Next slide, please. My favorite slide, Councillor wish list items. So for 2024, both Councillor Walker and Councillor MacArthur identified additional staff support in bylaw enforcement as wish list items. It has been proposed that this additional bylaw enforcement officer could address zoning issues and weekend coverage. This request by members of council is very practical, and it identifies that there has been an increase in the need for bylaw enforcement as we create and amend bylaws that require enforcement and support for other departments. So specifically planning with zoning infractions. When additional growth does occur, more resources will be needed as well. The need for weekend support has been mentioned with past councils, but it has all been about timing. The proposal for an additional officer is one that I'm suggesting should be considered possibly in the 2025 budget. There are a few reasons that I'm making this recommendation. As council just approved its new strategic plan, as a department, we would like to see where bylaw enforcement can support some of the other initiatives and what this looks like for projects for additional customer service measures. As well, with the new official plan process coming to completion in 2024, we would like to get an idea as to how this will affect the department, specifically with discussions regarding short-term rentals and if there's an appetite from council to institute a short-term licensing bylaw. There are current licensing responsibilities and bylaws that could also be reviewed and updated to provide efficiency and effectiveness. For example, our special event license, parking control, noise, etc. So as we grow as a community, there is no doubt that additional staff resources are needed. As I said, timing is very important with this, and looking at staffing through the lens of the township as a whole, it's just as important. So as a senior management team, we understand that there are multiple staffing asks for 2024, and I recognize that. So being mindful of the budget and the needs of other departments in relation to growth demands, I'm suggesting waiting until 2025 to explore an additional bylaw enforcement officer. Next slide, please. So just highlighted in this slide is the operating budget analysis. So of note, the revenue from user fees for bylaw enforcement, which includes POA revenue from fines, as well as licensing, permit fees, dog tags, etc., has not been meeting what we've been budgeting for. So to give a little bit of a background, over the last 5 years, and maybe a little bit more, there has been a real decrease in revenue from POA fines, and that's due to the percentage decrease to partner municipalities that we receive from the city of Barrie. This decrease is primarily to address the unpaid fines and the deficit this has caused. And this was identified, as I said, about 5 years ago from the city of Barrie. As well, council and the public will see the additional $10,000 that's being proposed for 2024 for that property standards item under contracted services. So that concludes the overview of the Clerk's Department Bylaw Enforcement 2024 budget. If there are any specific questions on my presentation slides, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
All right, Sasha, why don't you just stay right there with Kelly, because we'll open up the floor to the members of council to ask both of you and or John any questions in regards to these three very important areas. So I'll look to our members if there's any questions for this area of discussion. Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, Worship. Quick question in regards to economic development. In the past, we had a budget for economic development. Was that totally removed, or has that money been put to reserves on an accumulating basis?
Kelly?
Through your worship to Deputy Mayor Van Stavern. For the economic development budget, it's always moved forward into a reserve if it's not used. So there is quite a substantial economic development reserve.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other members of council? No? Okay, I am going to go. Oh, you go right ahead. Oh, please. Councillor, I tell you what, can you just stop sharing and put up the screen again, and then we'll go with Councillor Janine. Go right ahead. Phyllis.
Hi there. Sorry, Your Worship, through you to Kelly and Sasha, just the page 7, Kelly, the insurance cost, the actual budgeted or the actual costs for insurance in 2023 was $940, and it was budgeted for $94,000. Is that right? And on page 22, in the bylaw part for Sasha, it said the insurance cost was budgeted for $91,000, and the actual cost as of September 30th was $0. I'm just curious about those numbers. Thanks.
All right, Kelly.
Through your worship to Councillor Deneen. So those numbers are effective September 2023. We haven't done the final entry for those yet. What happens is it runs through one GL for the insurance, and then at the end of the year, we apportion it out based on facilities, vehicles, liability insurance that way. So that's just a timing difference between when the entry is done.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Members of council, is there anything further? Oh, Mr. Beelan, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question about the bylaw, the user fees. We're budgeting $127,000 when we haven't even got half of what we budgeted in other years. Should we be budgeting less income?
Through your worship to Councillor Beelan. So this is a question that the treasurer and I spoke about today. So this is what I spoke about for the user fees with the POA fines. We're attributing that there's a higher amount that we're getting a return on our user fees, and we're just simply not because of POA fines. So I believe that is something that we should be adjusting for the 2024 budget to bring it down to actuals and the amounts that we are receiving. Unless Kelly wants to specify anything more with that.
That would arrest more people.
Yeah, so the user fees it's a huge decrease for POA fines. Our licensing, canine control, dog tags, that's all sitting at standard amounts. It's not that we're not giving out that much more tickets or less tickets. It's just our apportionment from the city of Barrie and the percentage, because they had a huge deficit years ago and they're trying to reduce that deficit. So our percentage back from POA fines is not the same as in previous years.
We kind of hoped it would come back up. We had 1 year where it dropped substantially, obviously in 2020 when everything was shut down. We haven't adjusted the budget line yet, based on the hope that it would come back up, but the trend is not looking good right now.
Couldn't we change that this year then, or?
Ken? It's hard to judge what an accurate estimate is for that. We can go back and forth to the city of Barrie and see if they can give us an idea of what we're looking at for the coming years, whether those numbers are going to climb back up, and we can adjust it before council takes the budget to the public.
You all good? Okay, thank you. On that same point then, have you included the POAs that we received from the OPP in that calculation, or is this specifically just for bylaw POAs?
To your worship, these are strictly bylaw POAs.
Okay. Yeah. So again, I know from the OPP that the POAs have been an ongoing challenge in the fact that many of the judgments have been reduced. And so while a fine that had an example of $300 might end up being a $50 fine. And then the split happens where the court system needs their piece of that $50. And by the time it reaches us, we're getting a very small amount. When initially the actual fine would have been $300, and there would have been significant amount of calculation to give you what the POA should be. So anyway, it's there's certainly some struggles at the court systems in Ontario, and we're not going to solve it here today, but we're just going to have to continue to live with it, I guess. Anybody else with any other? Yeah, Marty, you're back in. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wondered why the contracted services for the bylaw has increased so much from 2023 to 2024.
Is that in regards to the $10,000 that we're proposing to add as an additional amount?
Yeah, is that included in the 33,500?
Yes.
Okay, so that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, then. Good, perfect. Anybody else with any other questions, members of council? All right, I've got a couple, if you don't mind. I'd like to ask about the IT person. I think that I absolutely understand why we need to, add some staffing to that department. Certainly the terrific staff person we have is performs above her capability for sure. And she's a very, very diligent staff person. I can tell you that. She does act as a project manager on a lot of projects though. So many of our computer issues are third-party vendors would provide service. And so would you say that she, in her work, she's spending a lot of time organizing those third-party vendors and sort of managing them rather than working the actual IT side of it? Because your comments were that we need to be a little more aware of our security and have that diligence placed on the workload. So is that what's happening? Is that she's having to manage the third-party people to get them to do the jobs while she's still trying to do security?
Absolutely, your worship. She is a one-man team.
I get it.
Yeah. So she's managing any of our third-party contractors for any of our software, server backups, things like that. And what ends up happening is projects that other departments might be waiting on, whether it's, installing a monitor, whether it's installing a switch at a different facility, those projects will end up getting bumped back and back and back and back because she just doesn't have time to do it all in one day. Right. So that's what we're hoping the IT assistant would sort of take over that foot on the ground hardware installation, hardware updates, software updates, things like that. That will alleviate McGlenna into more of a, as I say, security-based IT manager.
Yeah, I would suggest that the IT work, when you put a project together, like replacing a whole server rack or a server system, the vendor will provide a lot of the staff resources to actually do that work, right? Like they will provide it, they will install it, they will train, they will teach, they will get it all up and running. And then our staff person has to take over operating and looking after it to make sure that it maintains what it's supposed to do. Here's the trick, is that one moves on to the next project, but doesn't get a chance to go back and sort of make sure that the system that was installed 6 months ago is actually doing what it's supposed to do, because, you know, her time is being spent on organizing other projects at the same time. So I'm trying to understand how a new person will be able to help alleviate that. Are you going to look at her position as being the person who still deals with those third-party issues, and then have the new person deal with the, let's call them the customer client issues, meaning all of our staff and council and the public access to all of our servers? Is that how he's going to do that?
Through you, to worship, potentially that is the split. In my mind, what I'm seeing is trying to take that running all over the place away from our IT coordinator,
right,
and having an IT technician doing that. Having the IT coordinator, as you say, working with these third-party vendors on a regular basis. So it's not that, okay, I think I'm done here, jump over here now. It's get this done, move to the next scheduled project, get that done, have time to go back. And as you say, verify everything is going properly. Without that, okay, I can't think about that anymore. I've got 10 million things I've got to do in front of me still. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense, because I'm just concerned if you were hiring a technician role, that you could very easily start dividing the house and say, okay, you handle those projects and I'll handle these projects, right? Instead, I would think that you need to put that person in the role to serve their customer base, which is all of us, right? And let the work of the supervisor go on to create all the third-party projects so that they can be more efficient.
That is the intent.
I'm hoping you're not going to split it up, and so they're kind of both doing the same job at all times.
The last thing I am ever going to do is irritate our IT coordinator, because right now I'm her backup. So.
I hear what you're saying. So, and I hope that your training is fully up to date. Okay, so I got some other quick questions if I can. I absolutely appreciate the comments from members of council about the bylaw and weekends. And I would like to support that recommendation as well, that I think we do need to address some other hours, perhaps, other than your obvious business hours. I think that our bylaw department has proven this year alone that they have done an awful lot of work in the whole property standards issues. We've had an awful lot of cleanup go on around our township, and that's great. And some of these things do happen outside of regular hours. They can organize it, but the work goes on a beautiful sunny August afternoon till probably 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night to get the job done. So I'm just hoping that there's some flexibility in the staffing hours for the bylaw department during this 1 year of transition between when you're hoping that we're going to add another person in 2025. So maybe you can help me understand that better.
Thank you, Your Worship. That's a great question. So currently that is what is done. So there is some flexibility with our bylaw enforcement with some additional, we'll call them after hours, for them to bank that type of time. I can say that we work with some really great contractors in relation to property standards. So most of our issues and boots on the ground are during our regular office hours. However, our supervisor bylaw enforcement is very good that if he's needed after 4:30, 5 o'clock, he would be there and we can account for that time.
Yeah. So obviously our animal control falls into that as well. Many times there's an after hour call for animal control. Certainly as the fireworks season comes and goes and ebbs and flows in our community, the fireworks calls come up. There's occasionally we get a little bit of noise complaint issues, which I could point that is directed towards the short-term accommodation issues, which can be investigated afterwards, perhaps. But certainly having the availability of the flexible staff members to be able to handle the bylaw concerns would really help the community move forward with a smoother operation. And so I support the idea. So I just want to be assured that we don't need to create some kind of resolution or create some additional budget money to create weekend shifts. But I would hope that, the counselor's recommendation is accepted in a favorable manner, that we allow and expect some services over regular business hours. Is that fair?
Thank you, Worship. That is fair. And just to kind of clarify, so animal control are currently our bylaw officers. They do have after hours on call pay for animal control during Monday to Thursday.
Yep.
And then we do have a contract with a person to do Friday and over the weekend. So we do account for that. In relation to weekend work, our most and our biggest concern is noise. However, when we have a bylaw officer, we would be looking for them to work during the days on the weekend. But most of our noise complaints do come in after hours, like at midnight, 11:30, those types of things. So they are encouraged that if the noise is a large nuisance, to phone the OPP. But bylaw enforcement can follow up on Monday, because people can take recordings. They do know what where the noise is coming from, which house. We can do follow-ups. Our bylaw officers can attend those homes, just remind them of the bylaws and education first, and then address it afterwards. So we do have some mitigation in regards to those weekend concerns that we could cover over a year basis if we didn't have this role start until 2025.
Right. Additional to that too, Sasha, would also be the public works side of bylaw enforcement, particularly with the winter parking. Glad to see the signs going out again, by the way, from the public works people, putting the signs out in our community to advise, our residents that we have a winter, prohibited parking situation. And so glad to see that that's out there. Certainly their work after hours will be, hand in hand with the work that the public works staff do. So I just want to make it clear that we do have, as a council and as a community, an expectation that the bylaw department will work shifts.
So that is another great question. So currently we already have a partnership with Public Works, and our current bylaw officers already do scheduled patrols in regards to winter parking. So your first patrol is usually the warnings, where you see little warnings on cars and stuff. And then we schedule throughout the winter months, either the supervisor or the other bylaw enforcement officer will do a night shift, but will not come in the next day. So we do already account for those types of after hours calls and to look after the winter maintenance. So
fair enough. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm comfortable talking about it in 2025 for the budget in regards to an additional person. But I think council, I'll speak for council, and that we do want to make sure that we continue this type of service available on an ad-need basis as well as in a shift basis. So, okay. That's it for bylaw. Last item I'd like to speak about, and that is the Economic Development Officer. Mr. Ferguson and I have talked about this. John, are you still there? I think you're still there. Yeah. John and I have talked about this a couple of times, as he is right now he's designated as the Economic Development Committee, since we don't have a committee. And as the mayor, it is underneath the Municipal Act that the mayor has a responsibility over economic development as well. And so John and I have had a couple of conversations about this, and I was very pleased to see how he put this together and work with the senior management team to justify the position as a 2-year contract position. It also is very timely that it shows up at the same time as our strategic plan and our initiatives and our possibility of having a dashboard to keep track of our initiatives. And so I think that it's a very good thing at this time. I think that it'll speak well to how we do our budgets, actually, and the fact that we're using our reserve that's been built over some 10, 15 years to be able to operate this. And so the role and the responsibilities that the new officer or the new position would have will be very focused on serving our small business community, as well as operating community services that we provide by making sure that the strategic plan is delivering for our community. So that's my commentary on it. If there's anything else that council wants to say about economic development, and John's here, go ahead, Murdy. Okay.
Thank you, Worship. I'm just wondering why we can hire an IT technician with benefits for $84,000, and this economic development officer is going to be $110,000. What are we looking for? An MBA grad, or I don't understand why it's so expensive for. What are we looking for?
Mr. Ferguson's here. He could perhaps answer some of those questions.
So we haven't finalized the actual staffing cost of that position. Tammy is still reviewing that. It's not that high right now. Once we review and compare it to other areas, we'll be able to come back and try to keep consistent with the economic development positions that are out there right now.
Because I know when I did my MBA, you had to do a project at the end, sometimes a group project. And this would be ideal for a group project other than oversee the community economic development. But all the other things, that could be a project for an MBA student or students. I don't know if we thought of that maybe even. I just don't know what kind of person you're looking for this. Probably an MBA grad or a business grad.
No,
sometime.
there's a variety of people out there that has I guess, a broad breadth of education, but it can be a combination of both education and experience. A lot of the economic development people in the region right now are going through a bit of a shift with these potential new taxation on short-term rentals, what that is going to mean for the region and destination marketing and a variety of other things. I think we're going to see a shift on how all this comes together, but still working with the same organizations that we have. And locally, the big piece and what we feel is important about this particular position is it's both a community development position and an economic development position. Because if you take a look at Clearview, a lot of your festivals, markets, etc., have been garnered by local community participation, volunteers putting it together, and that's brought in entrepreneurs who want to set up a booth and sell a variety of different things, and that can lead to other things. So there's that component. There's the business expansion and retention programs that are out there, and there's a variety of tools that they are using. And there's also the planning aspect of it, where you have your commercial properties, where you have your industrial properties, etc. And having an economic development person that may be dealing with a potential business or even a volunteer group, for example, they need to have a broad wealth of experience in order to deal with that. And that's sort of what we're looking at. So even the job description that we just put up there today, it's not an exhaustive position of what we'll be seeking. If that helps.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So again, I'm supportive of the plan that has been proposed by the CAO and the fact that there's no direct taxation impact for the next 2 years on this project. So, however, we'll continue to make contributions to the reserve every year that operates the whole EDC operation. So that's great.
Well,
okay, John, go ahead.
I will add to through you, your worship, to Councillor Beeland, that the idea of having MBA students involved in potential projects and whatnot, I think it's a great idea. And if there's an opportunity to do that, I think we'd look at it.
Okay, definitely investigate that.
Yeah,
great. Council, all good? Oh, go ahead, Robert. Nice to have you. Go ahead.
Just along with the economic officer, hopefully this initiative would drive that he can get rally the troops, that we can get a whole committee going again like we've had in the past.
That's certainly something that we can discuss dependent upon the skills of the individual who gets that job, right? For sure. That's a good point. No doubt we will lean in on the the skills of our community and their business acumens that'll help us drive this program. Okay, nothing further. Thank you so much. We'll move on. We're going to do one more category and then I'm going to call for a little break. So let's go right to our library right now. Jennifer LaChapelle, who is our CEO of our Clearview Public Library, is here. Hi, Jennifer.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Council. I'd like to thank you for having me here to present the library board's budget. And can we go to the next screen, please? And thank you. Okay, so coming off the high of the last 2 years where we've won significant architectural awards for our Stainer branch, this year we came in second prize for the National TD Summer Reading Club program. And here is a picture of Michelle McKenzie, whose trip to the Saskatchewan Public Libraries Conference was paid by the federal government to pick up our prize, which included a $4,000 cash award that's gone into our reserves. The board hasn't decided what to do with that yet, but we're very happy to receive the funds. So we've not only got prize-winning buildings, but we've got prize-winning programs. Next slide, please. And in terms of what we've put into our operating and capital budgets and what's remained the same, I currently sit on the Ontario Public Libraries Association Council for Ontario Library Association and the Board of Directors for the Federation of Ontario Public Libraries. And this year we have heavily pounded to ministry officials and the minister himself that we need more operating and pay equity grants. The operating and pay equity grant that the province gives each individual public library were frozen in 1994. They used to be a per capita amount, but they were cut in 1994, and there's been no increase since. So FOPL and OLA have been really pushing for a $21 million increase to this amount. This would, if we saw it, would almost double what we are currently receiving. They seem very receptive, but having been in this game for 33 years, I'm not holding my breath. So we are looking at least receiving $25,803 from the province. One of the things we're looking at expanding is our outreach programs. Clearview Township is a very large geographic area. We have 3 branches for which we are very grateful, but for many people, it's still hard to get to the branches, particularly if you're in one of the smaller urban nodes and you're a one-car family and somebody's at work. It's hard to get to the branches for whatever you need. So at the current time, we are going to 2 small halls twice a month to take parts of our collection, talk about our programs, and try to find out what else we can do for them within the library to meet their information and recreational library needs. And we would like to expand that to 4 halls in 2024. Now, the halls are letting us use their parking lots for free, which is great during the summer and the fall and the late spring. But in the winter, they, of course, need some money to compensate for turning on the lights and heating the building to a comfortable temperature. So we're looking at doubling what we're currently spending to in 2024 to $2,050. And we're in discussion with a couple of other halls to see what we can do. I don't see this being expanded to all the halls because we don't have the staff, but it would be nice to get out there. And we have found that by doing this, although right now, it's something that builds slowly, we have increased our membership from people realizing what they can get if they make the effort to get into the branch. So I think it's worthwhile. Something that's in the budget for 2024 is the Stoner, can't talk, it's too late in the day, Stainer donor and erection signage. And somebody on somebody's got a filthy mind. It isn't me. That's not what I was thinking. And for the Stainer branch, okay, we knew we were going to need that. It was actually budgeted for 2023, but our sign committee didn't, we'd had a sign committee in the previous board. Our new board, which is about 50% turnover, wanted to look at it again. We've come up with some good ideas. So although it's in the 2024 budget, taxpayers have already paid for it. It will be coming out of 2023 monies, but you should know about it. We have been told by our HVAC contractor that 2024, the new Lowell Library boiler needs to be replaced. This isn't something we've edged it along in 2023. He said he could keep it going, but we know we have to do this. So that is a capital project for 2024. Something that we also put in was some work in the new Lowell branch in general maintenance, vinyl repair. There's been water damage. I know a couple of years ago, we replaced the flat roof, and subsequent to that, we need some drywall fixed and some painting done. The other thing we wanted to do was start gradually replacing the original windows that were put in 2008 because they've really decayed. And those of you who are on the board from council will know when we did the branch tours in September, you could see that the decay in the windows is pretty bad. I know one of you has suggested as part of the council wish list that we replace all of them. If you give us the money, we will certainly do that. And it probably would save money in the long run, because I think, you know, if you do a bulk, larger contract, you're probably going to get a better rate. And I think Kelly has included that in your documentation. It wasn't in the initial board approved budget, but I don't think the board would have any problem approving additional funds to fix the bridge. The other thing we were looking at in 2024 and 2025 are new open hours. We've now in the Stainer branch been in there for a few years, and we're kind of post-pandemic. We're seeing what the normal flow of people coming in to use the branch is. We've also put out a survey, both online and in person, to garner people's interest in particular hours that we could be open. And we've also been doing gate counts of who's coming into the buildings at what time. So for 2024, our open hours committee met yesterday and has come up with some really good ideas that won't increase the number of hours that each branch is open, but would distribute them differently in line with the information we obtained from the gate counts and from surveys and from talking to people out in the community. This will be going to the board for approval this month at the board's meeting on the 21st. And if approved by the board, it would run in 2024 for a 6-month term project to see what the public reaction is. And I think it would really address some of the defaults we find with our current open hours. But in 2024, it would simply mean jockeying staff, and it would not mean any additional staffing cost increase. That doesn't mean in 2025, we're not going to hitch up for some money, but that's another story. Next slide, please. Okay, so in 2025, what are we looking at? Well, if there are board decisions that come up that are going to require more staffing costs, that's when we would approach you with that. To do with our open hours. The other big thing is that in the development charges schedule for 2025, there's a Creemore branch addition of 1,000 square feet. Now, so the board's put it in there, but will that occur in 2025 or will it be put off? That's a council decision. But what I can tell you is that for some time we've recognized that there are some updates to the building that need to be done. The washrooms, the flooring in terms of the carpeting, and replacement of some of the windows. And we had thought, okay, well, we're close enough to 2025 that if we do the addition in that year, we'll do it all together because it just makes sense to include that as an addition project. However, if it looks for 2025 that the addition is going to be pushed off by a number of years, you may see us coming to you in 2025 with some additional costs to do that kind of maintenance and upkeep on the branch. Next slide, please. And this I've put in as a tribute to our former township treasurer, who felt that every presentation could be improved with a pie chart. For those of you who
I'm gonna clip this little video and I'm gonna send it to Edward, okay?
Please do, please do. Okay, next slide. I also wanted to take this opportunity to update you on what's going on with the Simcoe County Digital Library Service, which replaced the Simcoe County Library Cooperative. I have to pay tribute to the Simcoe County IT department because they've done an exceptional job of working with all the public libraries and adapting some of the things that they had initially planned to meet our needs. They've really been phenomenal. The county is committed to continuing to pay for the databases we have. And what used to happen was the cooperative would pay for all the databases that we use pretty much. So that's about $200,000 a year. Now the county IT department is doing that. So that is great that they're continuing that, because we as Clearview Public Library don't pay for any databases. All the databases that are available to the public through us are paid for by the county. So I'm very happy that they're continuing this. But one of the problems in terms of our collection budget is that the county no longer provides physical materials. And that's okay, except, you know, I know we're a big library in some people's eyes, but we're still small in the overall scope of things. And we've not been able to, we really relied on the county library cooperative to provide some of the really expensive formats, and now we're having to purchase them ourselves. So for example, these are all from a company called Findaway. These three things I'm going to show you, and you may have seen them last year when I ferreted out stuff from our collection at the last budget meeting. But they're not available to the public. Only educational institutes and libraries can get them, and they're extremely popular in our communities as they are in others. This is called a Play-Away View. And so it takes a book that's very popular. And in fact, I don't know if you can see it, but the Pigeon books are popular award-winning books, and they've made them into animation stories. So the kids can take these and just plug them in their car or wherever in their home and watch it on here. There's no additional things. They don't have to stick in a disc for those of us who are as old as me. It's easy to use, keeps them occupied, and it's related to a book, which is what I like about it. This is $68. This is a launch pad, which you can get for little kids, teens, even adults. They're great for senior adults if you're worried about keeping your acuity, mental acuity up there. They have all kinds of games on them. I'll show you what they look like. If I could get the damn thing open. Okay. So again, it's a tablet with a charger, very easy. There's not a whole bunch of parts. It can have up to 28 games. The price for this is anywhere from $129 to $230, depending on which ones you buy. The adult ones tend to be more expensive. Very popular, especially in our Stainer branch, but now we have to buy them ourselves. And then we have Play-Away books. You used to, if nobody's here is as old as me, but if you were, well, maybe Councillor Walker, you might be. But you probably remember coming to the library and getting a book with a cassette for your kids, right? So they could hear it and read along in the book. And it's a good way to learn how to read as well as being entertaining. Now it's in another little plug-in, right? So easy to use. They cost about $100. Right? So we're now having to take our collection budget, which would have been for what we normally buy, and redistribute it. So thank you for the good collection budget we have, but that is one of the things that we're missing from the County Library Cooperative. And that's okay, we can adapt and change. The other issue that you should be aware of, because it may affect our 2025 budget, it will end out being a zero thing, but you'll see it in there. I'm not quite sure how this is going to roll out. So the Simcoe County Library Cooperative has been, well, the request has gone to the minister to dissolve it. But a library board, according to the Public Libraries Act, cannot be dissolved until the board has not met for 2 years. So that will happen in 2025. The Ontario Library Service, from whom we get our databases as a consortium through the county at a hugely discounted rate, we could not get it at that rate by ourselves, will only, because they are a Crown agency and have to attend to the mandate the government has given them, negotiate these things with public library boards. So in 2025, there will be no County Library Cooperative Library Board. So the county IT department cannot negotiate database costs with OLS. The result will be that either individually we have to negotiate these costs with the Ontario Library Service, or one of the libraries in the consortium will take this on and be funded after they've paid for it by the county. So in the overall end of things, it will be zero, but there may, if we have to do it individually, be both revenue and expense in the 2025 budget. So it'll end up good, but if you see numbers in there, I want you to understand where they're coming from. Next slide. And what's new and happening in the wonderful world of libraries? Well, here I've told you that our new access to e-magazines and e-newspapers is getting over 7,500 hits a month. It's gone up. In September, it was over 8,000. In October, I've just finished doing the statistics. It was over 9,000. We still have magazines and newspapers in the branches, but they never got anything like this. We have people now who, although they have library cards, they only are using us digitally. And so this is a real trend. I can see it increasing. Tell your friends. A trend that we're not crazy about is book banning, and that's coming to us from the States and moving up, and it's getting kind of scary. We have, your worship, you said go and talk to your staff about this and prepare them. So we have done that. But these groups are coming into library branches and being quite outspoken in the feeling that some of these often award-winning books should be taken off the shelf. So I want you to know where some of our concerns are. So we're looking in 2024 at implementing some new and exciting operating hours. No additional funding required, some jockeying of staff, but we can do that. And I think you'll be very happy because one of the proposals that's going to the board is Sunday hours in Stainer. And also no more closures during the week at the Creemore branch. We recognize that the people who've lived in Creemore for ages are used to it, but we're building in Creemore and there's new people coming in and they look at it and think, why is it closed? Right now, the library board is getting ready to deliberate its new strategic plan. And that's happening in December. We're going to have our first meeting of that committee. And one of the things they're going to be looking at is the priorities that you as council have established for the township. All right, so we're going to try to funnel in the board's priorities to match up. And this, I believe, will be our 5th strategic plan. And we're very excited about that. Next. And that's it. So if you've got specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate your presentations and your humor in your presentations as well. Well done. Council, do you have any questions to Jennifer and the library? Yes, Mr. Walker, please do.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to go back to the windows. I believe this council needs to increase that amount and deal with that situation this year. Upon looking at those windows in the new Lowell, the older windows, there is a fair bit of dry rot and rot visual on the outsides, and that will only cause us internal issues if we do not address that. So I'm asking council to think and looking at maybe increasing that 12 to 30,000 so that all those windows can be dealt with in one contract. So just council, just to keep that in mind, please, when we do deliberations, because I think it's very important to that building.
And Councillor Walker, through your worship, Kelly, that's, you'd put that in here, right?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Through your worship to Councillor Walker. If you look to your capital spreadsheets, you will notice that under the library, there's an additional 30,000 in capital, and that was specifically for that request.
Excellent. Okay. That's great. You got a question too, Paul? Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarification, and us newbies will say, can you explain your board? How many members are there? Do we have representation from our council staff? Explain that to us so we understand.
So library boards are established under the Public Libraries Act. There are currently 7 board members, and under the Public Libraries Act, council members can make up to 1 less than majority. So it's really citizen appointees who drive the board. Obviously, we take, having council members there who can tell us what's going on in the township is crucial. And they're also very useful for feeding back to council what's going on at the board. So the board then is responsible for the administration through me of the library branches. And I'm responsible for the branches and the staff and the collection and programs.
So as of right now, we have 7 board members. They've all been appointed previously. Is that correct? Or is there
No.
a term to it?
We have 2 returning council members and 1 returning citizen appointee,
Okay.
and the rest are all new.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think I had Marty first and then I'll go to you, Robert. Go ahead, Marty.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hope I took that book back that I took out. Okay. How many windows are there? That was the first question I had that need replacing.
Are there not 4 on each side, or is that 5?
I can't remember.
2 at the front, isn't there? I think it's total 8, 3 on each side and 2 on the front.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of the 2 on the front. Yeah.
Left, 3 on the east, 3 on the west, 2 on the north.
And for some reason, Councillor, through your worship, the ones on the east side were far worse than the ones on the west. I mean, the west ones have the dry rot too, but not as bad.
Yeah. So my next question is about your rental, facility rental. You're currently doing 2 halls and you're going to want to go to 4. Which 2 halls were you doing? And is there some kind of report on how good the outreach program was? Like how effective was it?
Okay, so the 2 halls we're currently at are on Dunedin and Nottawa. And we've met a lot of people, but we haven't had a lot of interaction. So right now we're going to them twice a month and we're getting maybe 5 to 8 people at each meeting. We're only there for about 45 minutes. It's not a huge amount of time because the person we have doing this is also our teen librarian and has a slew of other programs as well as some desk duty. But it's getting the message out there. So we've only been doing it since the late spring. So it's still, when you're only going twice a month, it takes a while to get this thing up and get some traction.
Yeah. So you won't be going to evening though, because it's not ready.
Well, no. And we're also looking at what they're willing to.
So which 2 are you planning on going to?
That's in negotiation. It'll be partly based on what they want to charge. I'm not going to name the board, but one of them came back with a huge amount for using the inside of their facility for an hour, which I couldn't justify. I'd have to triple what I've asked for here. So, and we're also looking in terms of how close are they to a branch? All right. Is it feasible that they could easily get to a branch if they wanted to? Whereas Dunedin's a bit of a ways out, and Nottawa, as we know, Nottawa has been an issue for Nottawa people getting to the Stainer branch for years.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Robert. You had something? Yeah.
Yeah, just in regards to the potential addition to the Creemore branch, and you've got 400,000 scheduled for development charges. Is there a reserve fund at all that's been gaining money towards this, or where does that?
I'll let Kelly answer the money questions.
Kelly?
Thank you, Worship. So we do have a building reserve fund for the library. We also have a brand new branch, which aid into that reserve fund. We are trying to get money back into it. We're putting $25,000 a year into it. I believe the Creemore addition is mainly growth related though, so it would technically be funded mainly from development charges once that growth is there. So between the library building reserve and the library development charge reserve, that's where it would be funded.
Good point. That's good. Other members of council? No? Okay. I'd like to ask, you mentioned the program where you're going out to some of our small halls, but I'm actually interested in now that we've been established with the Stainer branch, sort of joined at the hip with the recreation facility and the hall there in Stainer. Can I just get an understanding on how it operates and how it's managed and how the use of the community center hall is benefiting the library services and how it's frankly being supported by the recreation services? Can you help me out there?
Well, I hope so, Your Worship. I couldn't ask for a better partner in crime than Terry Vachon to work with. And his staff have been amazing. So when we do need, when the whole Stainer Library building project was conceived, it wasn't just the branch, but it was to make use of the community center when it wasn't being used for other purposes. So the community center was rejuvenated.
Yep.
And I think it looks a lot better. And now you have a north and a south hall. So when we need programming space, that's where we go. We book it through Parks and Rec. If there's something big going on, like a wedding, and I know we've had this discussion before, we would try to find some other way to hold our programs. So I think most days there's always something going on, if not in the two hall sections, in the back boardroom. There's, between what happens from Parks and Rec and what happens with us, we're making very good use of the facility.
Okay. What I'm hoping to get clarified, just for council's purposes, is there a reconciliation between library department and recreation department on the upkeep and maintenance of the hall? Or are you and your department leaning on the recreation staffers to prepare and clean and get the hall ready, or how does that work?
Okay, so with the north and south hall, it's Terry's staff who are cleaning it up. My staff have been told that they need to return it to the condition it was in when they walked in.
Sure.
And one of the things that the library has done is take over the cost of the cleaning of the back boardroom.
Right.
So that's cleaned every night that the library is open, which is currently 5 nights a week, and we pay for that.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not sort of double dipping in our budgets here. So Terry, just a quick comment from you. You're finding the relationship is working, and is there any financial concern that the budget needs to know about the use of the hall with the library?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. To echo Jennifer's comments, we work really well together. We've had some growing pains, especially post-COVID, but it's been working really well. We kind of, we all kind of chip in and kind of help out from a financial perspective. Like Jennifer said, we absorb most of the costs for the main two halls. The library do a great job keeping the place clean after they use it as well. So there's no concerns. There's no double dipping.
Good.
Most of the, that demarcation wall, anything kind of west of that is taken by the rec department. Anything kind of east of the wall there is kind of taken care of by the library. We kind of share with the HVAC, because it's one HVAC. Well, there's two HVAC systems, but we have one HVAC contract. But we work well together, and we just kind of absorb our sides as they come up.
Okay, that's good to hear. Very positive to hear, and it's also one of the the hallmark things that happens in Clearview is departments work with each other around here a lot. So I think it's good to point that out. All right. If there's nothing further, I'm very happy with the presentation so far. Has anybody else got anything further? All right. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Well done. It's always good to see you here.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Council, at your pleasure, I would ask that we would do a recess, and we'll come back at 25 to the hour. So basically at 25 minutes to the hour, we'll be back in the room. Okay. Thank you.